Welcome back to MHS Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you come to these videos as a gentle way to unwind before drifting off to sleep. So, before you close your eyes tonight, could I ask you for one small favor? Just leave me a quick interaction, a comment, a like, or maybe share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Little actions like that help YouTube recognize the content and spread it to more people who might enjoy it. My current goal is to reach around 300 likes within the first 24 hours. Now then, let's step into tonight's chilling stories together. My name is Tyler. This story happened when I was 12 years old. At the time, I lived with my family in Dallas, Texas. At the end of that September, my class won the school-wide reading challenge. The prize was a field trip to Chuck E. Cheese. I'd only been to Chuck E. Cheese once before, and I hadn't gotten to try all the games. I was incredibly excited. That day, we gathered in the classroom and then went to the bus together. The feeling of leaving school on a school day to go to Chuck E. Cheese was amazing. Some kids brought disposable cameras to take pictures. Some even brought their Game Boys to play on the bus. We arrived in about 10 minutes. This Chuck E. Cheese was in a shopping mall in the city. Since it was a weekday, it wasn't too crowded. We were given some tokens to play games, along with some delicious pizzas. We started running around, full of excitement. It was the best day of my life. About 30 minutes after we arrived, I started to feel like exploring new areas. I wandered off alone to a quiet corner of the place to see if there was anything cool there. This area was much quieter than the others. There weren't many people around. I walked past a few racing games, occasionally stopping to watch. It was then, between the racing games and a claw machine, that I suddenly saw the shape of a grown man hunched over, as if he was trying to hide. I stopped and squinted to get a better look. The man was hiding very well. If you didn't look closely, it would have been difficult to spot him. I was curious, so I slowly moved closer to check if there was really a man there, or if it was just my imagination. As I got closer, the man suddenly turned and looked me straight in the eye. I'm sure I looked at him with a confused expression, my mouth agape, unable to say a word. Then, a smile appeared on the man's face. I remember that smile very clearly, and my own feelings at the time. It was not a friendly smile. Trust me, kids have their own way of sensing things, and it's incredibly accurate. He slowly raised his index finger to his mouth, signaling me to be quiet. I just nodded reluctantly and quickly left. After not finding any games in that corner, I started to go back to the central area. On my way out, I found a shooting game and decided to try it. While playing, for some reason, I kept glancing back at the corner where I had met the man. The man appeared again. This time he wasn't hiding. He was standing in the open, next to a little girl. She was about my age, but she wasn't in my class. I still remember she was wearing a Disney's Little Mermaid t-shirt and had her brown hair in a ponytail. At first I thought she might be the man's daughter. Maybe they were just playing hide and seek, but when I looked more closely, I noticed they were moving toward the emergency exit. The way the man kept looking around was very cautious. He was also squeezing the girl's arm and pulling her along. It didn't look like how my dad would hold my sister's hand. I thought it was strange, and I decided to intervene. I left the game and started walking straight toward them. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I didn't have a specific plan. I just knew I had to do something. When I was about 10 feet away from them, the man suddenly saw me. His eyes immediately changed. He looked at me, then at the girl, then back at me. What happened next was truly amazing and confirmed all my suspicions. The man suddenly let go of the girl's arm. Without saying a word, he turned around and rushed toward the emergency exit, disappearing in a flash. The girl was left standing there alone, looking confused and scared. I quickly went to the girl and asked if she knew the man. The girl looked at me and weakly shook her head without saying a word. I took her to my teacher and told her everything. The teacher immediately contacted the Chuck E. Cheese manager and called the police. However, the man had disappeared without a trace. I don't know what happened next because the teacher told me to go back and continue having fun with my friends. I offered to bring the girl to play with us, but the teacher said she needed to rest. That was the first and last time I saw that girl. To this day, when I think back, I can't forget the feeling of anxiety and luck from that day. I'm so glad I trusted my instincts and acted quickly. There was something about that man from the first time I saw him that made me feel suspicious, and in the end, that instinct was completely right. It's a valuable lesson about always trusting your gut, no matter how young you are. I'm John, 22 years old. I'm finishing up my college degree in the small town of Springfield, Illinois. 3 years ago, I needed money for tuition, so I decided to apply for a job at the Chuck E. Cheese family entertainment restaurant. I had so many great childhood memories there. When I came back as an employee, I thought the job would be easy and fun. I used to think the owner was a kind and compassionate person, but he was actually one of the most unpleasant and uncaring individuals I've ever met. He was always in tight control of every employee and constantly gave us new tasks. Most days, the store was understaffed. It seemed that working at Chuck E. Cheese was a job no one wanted. In the end, I had to do almost everything I was asked to do, except cook. However, out of all of us, the mascot was the most overworked person. For a long time, I never saw the person inside the costume. Almost all the time, he was in the Chuck E. Cheese costume and on stage performing for the kids. One day, I witnessed his exhaustion. At the time, I was wiping down a table right next to the performance stage. When I glanced up, I saw a drop of blood coming from the corner of the mask's eye. I couldn't believe my eyes. Around me, the kids were giggling and clapping to the music, completely unaware of the unusual thing happening right in front of them. I knew the person behind the mask had felt my stare. Charles started to act weird. His familiar dance moves became clumsy. His steps were no longer steady. The person inside the costume was visibly shaking. He was trying to control his body, but he couldn't. Suddenly, the owner appeared with a look full of rage. He yelled at me to get back to work. When the mascot saw the owner, he retreated behind the curtain in a hurry. The kids screamed. This made the owner even angrier. He quickly ran through the restricted door to the back room. A few parents looked annoyed and seemed to be getting angry with the employees. I didn't want to get yelled at, so I quietly followed the owner into the back room. I followed the yelling to the mascot's dressing room. I tiptoed closer and saw that the door was ajar. The scene I witnessed made the blood in my veins run cold. The mascot, without his mask, was hunched over in front of the mirror, crying bitterly. When I saw his face, I was so shocked that I had to cover my mouth to keep from screaming. His face was full of cuts. "Please, I can't do this job anymore. Please let me go," he pleaded in a desperate voice. I could hear the owner's footsteps walking around the room. He was yelling, "Shut up, you weakling. Why can't you do a simple job?" The owner stood behind the man in the costume and leaned close to his ear. His voice was full of threats. "Unless you want me to find a replacement for Charles, there's no one else to take your place. That means you're going to stay here and keep the business from going bankrupt, okay? You can't go home. You have to keep playing the role." My curiosity went too far. I sneakily moved closer, but I bumped into the door. It swung wide open. "Well, it looks like we found a new candidate for the role of Charles," he said with a cold smile as he kicked the mascot and stomped on his stomach. The owner looked at me with an evil stare and said, "Close the door, kid. We need to talk." The mascot groaned in pain under his foot, but the owner didn't care. Just as the owner was about to step toward me, the mascot suddenly got up. He pulled a small knife from inside the costume and lunged straight at the owner. He didn't have time to react, and with all the pent-up hatred, he stabbed him repeatedly. The owner's screams grew weaker and weaker. Then they stopped completely. The space was silent. There was only the sound of heavy breathing and the strong, metallic smell of blood. When his rage subsided, he turned to me. His voice was calm. Call the police for me. My hands were shaking. I fumbled for my phone. The mascot didn't resist. It was as if all the pain and oppression he had endured for so long had been pushed to the limit. And this was the only way to be free. I was both scared and felt sorry for him. I think he had hidden the knife in there for a long time. The police came. He was taken away. He would have to face the law, but I think he accepted his choice. In his last fleeting glance, I felt his relief. I stood there, drenched in sweat. I quit my job right after that. Since that day, I have never gone back to Chuck E. Cheese. I also don't want to step into any kid's entertainment restaurant again. Even though 3 years have passed, the image of the man in that costume still haunts me every night. My name is Michael. I was 10 years old at the time. I was living in a small town outside of Denver, Colorado. My sister Katie was 2 years younger than me. She was a little girl with brown hair, sparkling eyes, and a bright smile. Katie was always an energetic child. She loved to explore and was especially obsessed with puppies. We loved to stay with our grandma on the weekends. She always gave in to our every wish. That weekend, my grandma took us to Chuck E. Cheese in the evening, as she had promised. We had been there for a while when it started to rain pretty hard outside. But inside, everything was fine. We did all the usual kid things. We ate pizza, jumped in the ball pit, and even argued a little. My grandma sat at a nearby table with her salad and a romance novel. She didn't seem to mind us at all. We were playing skee-ball. It's a classic arcade game right next to the main glass doors that looked out onto the parking lot. From there, we could see everything outside. At that time, we noticed a man wearing a baseball cap, dark sunglasses, and a coat. He kept walking back and forth outside in the rain and was holding a small dog. Katie loved dogs. For the past few months, she had been begging our parents to get a dog. So when she saw that cute dog through the glass, she jumped up and down with excitement. The man smiled at us through the glass door. Katie waved back happily. He pointed to the dog and then motioned for us to come outside. We looked over at our grandma's table. She was still engrossed in her novel. She was completely unaware of what was happening around her. So, we opened the door ourselves and walked out. We started to pet the small dog. It licked our hands in a friendly way. The man smiled softly and said, "Hey, he has a few siblings. Do you want to meet them?" Katie looked up with bright eyes. "Really?" We nodded excitedly. "They're in my car over there," he said. The man finished talking and stood up. He walked toward his car. We started to follow him across the parking lot, but after just a few steps, he suddenly stopped. "There's just one problem. They don't like boys." I stood there, confused and a little embarrassed by what he said. "Whenever boys are around, they bite and get very nervous. You don't want that, right?" We were silent. Then we looked at each other. I looked at Katie, my little sister. Her brown eyes were still sparkling with excitement. Then I naively replied, my voice shaking, "I guess not." "Good. Then you go back inside and play. She'll be back in a few minutes." Katie followed the man alone. I stood there watching her. Katie disappeared behind the other cars. I was about to go back inside the store when a sharp scream came from the distance. It was Katie's scream for help. I was stunned for a few seconds. Then I ran into the store faster than ever before. I yelled for my grandma. I was sobbing and said a man took Katie and that she was screaming for help. I pointed toward the entrance. My grandma immediately went with a security guard from Chuck E. Cheese in the direction I pointed. My grandma yelled Katie's name. The security guard ran in the direction of the sound. Finally, we found Katie struggling and crying next to a gray van. The man saw us and panicked. He ran away and left Katie. The security guard chased after him, but he jumped into his car and sped away into the rainy night. Katie ran into my grandma's arms. Her whole body was shaking. I hugged Katie. The three of us stood in the rain, shaking but grateful that everything had ended well. The police arrived later. They took our statements and drove us home safely. They said that because we noticed in time and Katie was so brave to resist, she was saved. We found out that the small dog had been left behind. 3 weeks later, thanks to the security camera footage and our statements, the police arrested the kidnapper. My parents, after hearing the story, decided to adopt the small dog. They thought that turning something scary into a good memory would help Katie overcome her fear. We named the dog Lucky. Almost 10 years have passed since that night. I never leave Katie alone anymore. I don't want to give any opportunity for the word regret.
One evening, as I was drifting off to sleep, my phone suddenly rang. I jolted awake, my face scrunching up in discomfort at being disturbed. I answered the call, pressing the phone to my ear without bothering to check who was calling.
"Please help me,"
a man shouted. I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. When I looked at the number displayed on the screen, I rubbed my eyes 3 times. 911?
"Please help me. He's about to catch up with me."
The person on the other end was panicking, his voice distorted, as if he were crying and desperate. "Who are you? Please calm down and tell me your address. I will help you call the police." I hurriedly replied to him, then paused. But the number of the police hotline is calling for my help. Stunned for a few seconds, when I raised the phone to my ear again, I could only hear the long beeping sounds. What just happened? I think about the safety of that man. But how can I call the police when they're the ones calling for help? That was the first time I received such a strange call. Of course, things didn't just end there. The second time, while I was preparing lunch for a relaxing weekend, the phone rang loudly. When I saw the screen display 911, I hesitated to answer. After the screen, there was silence, and I could hear my heart pounding loudly. "May I ask, who is on the other end of the line?" In response, there was still silence, followed by a soft sigh, and then the call ended. I was annoyed because I was pretty sure I was being pranked by some idle person. If there's another time, I definitely won't let him get away with it. The third call came a week later, when I thought I had escaped those pranks. I picked up the third call with irritation, taking a deep breath to prepare to give that bastard a lesson when,
"Please help me,"
a girl's voice. I estimated she was about 7 or 8 years old. Before I could answer, there was a chilling sound when flesh was impacted, the sound of metal, the squelching noise, and the drip of liquid falling. It was so clear that it penetrated my eardrum, followed by the long beeping sounds pulling me back to reality. I immediately removed the SIM card and buried the phone deep in the wardrobe. My mental state in the following days was in turmoil. I chose to stay home, haunted by all the noises, unable to control my mind from imagining the horrific scene behind that third call. I didn't share the story with anyone for fear of being accused of slander or suspected of being mentally insane. I kept avoiding it along with the fear and a million thoughts. On the 10th day, I decided to go outside to get some fresh air and relieve my stress. It was all just a cruel prank. That was my way of reassuring myself, and the most convincing reason I could find. The sunset evening in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where I live, is truly wonderful. Wearing my running shoes, I jogged slowly while enjoying the scenery around me. It's a shame that these unexplained events have affected my life, and I've wasted this beautiful scenery for so long. I had run about 4 miles away from home. As I was walking gently to relax my body and head home, I encountered a man whose gaze was fixed intently on me. His pink outfit contrasted sharply with his angular, menacing face, creating a bizarre mismatch. I'm not someone who likes to pick fights, so I quickly left. I could hear someone's footsteps behind me, and I unconsciously walked faster, my heart pounding. I turned my head slightly to look back and saw a tall figure in pink clothing. It seemed to be the man from earlier. Is he just on the same path, or does he have other intentions? I stopped, stretched my body a bit, and ran. After all, I was in the appearance of a runner. I started to run. This would be a test. If he didn't follow, it meant I had been overthinking. But no, the man immediately shifted gears and sped up quickly. He chased after me, growling like a wild dog in a frenzy. I ran as fast as I could, with all my survival instincts and the desire to live. After running quite a distance, I thought about calling the police, but damn it, my phone was still buried in the closet. As soon as I saw a phone booth, I rushed in and locked the door, almost crying like a lost child. Unable to think of anything, instead of dialing the police, I pressed a very long number. "Please help me. He's about to catch up with me." I panicked, cried, and desperately screamed into the phone when I saw that crazy guy in the pink outfit holding a knife.
Who are you? Please, calmly tell me your address, and I will help you call the police.
I shuddered. I had just called myself. I'm Selena, a 35-year-old single mom. My son is 4 years old. I've been using a sleep app called Sleep As Android. Besides reminding me when it's bedtime and waking me up, the app can also record my whole night of sleep. I usually listen to those recordings for fun while I'm cooking or reading. It's usually just little humming sounds, my light breathing, sometimes snoring, or the noise of me shifting around in bed. I still use the app, but I don't listen to the recordings anymore. One time, when my son had a high fever, I brought him back to the bedroom with me. The next day, I suddenly remembered the sleep recording from the night before with my son, so I opened it and listened to it again. The boy turning over and coughing a bit throughout the night.
What are you doing?
I was surprised when I heard that question. I looked around the house, and it was just me and my son. No guests.
Nothing.
The reply was really quiet and deep. I was startled and checked my phone, rewinding it about 10 seconds. That short conversation played again. The question,
What are you doing?
was definitely my voice, but I was confused about why I asked it and who answered. It couldn't have been my son. He was only 4, and that voice was really deep. I got up and looked around the house, feeling suspicious. After listening to the whole recording, nothing else seemed out of the ordinary. I was really confused, so that day I listened to the recording over and over, at least 20 times. I sent it to a few friends, and they felt the same way I did. My son's condition didn't get any better, so I took him to the hospital, and we stayed there for almost a week. I forgot about the weird incident from that night for a while, until one day. After getting home with my son, I got a call from my best friend.
Selena, I sent your recording file for a frequency and sound analysis.
Reading the results my friend just sent me made me even more confused. The question in that conversation was definitely my voice, with a pitch range that's typical for a female voice, from 165 Hz to 255 Hz. A kid's voice is higher pitched than an adult's and changes as they grow up. The pitch of a male voice is usually at least around 80 Hz. But that answer had a frequency of only 65 Hz, so it couldn't have been from a normal person. Also, the results showed that the recording had a lot of strange moving sounds in it, I was really scared, but there wasn't much I could do at the time. I couldn't report something so weird and unknown to the police, but the fear of not being able to figure things out made me uneasy. I decided to share my story on social media, and a lot of people came up with theories. Some people thought it was my son's voice, answering vaguely because he was uncomfortable and woke up in the middle of the night. But some people made pretty strong and convincing arguments. That night, there might be a thief broke into my house. The strange sounds in the recording were probably the noises the thief made while going through everything. In a daze and out of habit, I asked him what he was doing, but I was totally unaware of what was happening at the time. The thief seemed startled and scared when he heard me ask that. The person who came up with the theory even figured out that it took him exactly 5 seconds to respond with nothing. Partly because he was scared I'd caught him, and partly because he wanted to see how I'd react. When he saw me still lying in bed, he thought I was still asleep, so he answered to calm me down. I really shuddered when I read that theory. It was probably just a thief, or maybe even a crazy murderer. I hugged my son, quietly thanking God for keeping us safe if it really was a thief. But when I checked again, the thief hadn't taken anything valuable from the house, which was really confusing. Some others thought I'd encountered an alien with an unreal voice frequency. I got really anxious and couldn't sleep for a while, so I decided to move in with my mom. She was living alone too and was really welcoming to me and my son. Everything wrapped up 2 years ago, but to me, the real answer to that mysterious voice is still a mystery. I'm Benny, 35 years old. I love traveling to different places, discovering new things, and documenting it all. I have a YouTube channel where I share my real experiences with people who have the same interests. Over time, my hobby turned into a passion, and it even started helping me make some extra money. Last fall, I took a trip to explore a forest that's about a 4-hour drive from where I live. I planned to stay in the forest for a night or two and brought all the gear I needed. By the time I got to the forest, it was already late afternoon. There was still a bit of weak sunlight, just enough for me to look around and find a spot to settle for the night. The forest wasn't super wild or dense. From what I could tell, a lot of people had been there to explore before. I saw names carved into the trees, along with some water bottles, plastic bags, and leftover fast food boxes. As I ventured further into the forest, I spotted a few interesting things under a white oak tree. There were scraps of paper wedged with small stones at both ends, and they had personal notes written on them. The water bottles and flat stones were covered with song lyrics, and there were a ton of them. I felt curious and a bit intrigued, so I skimmed through everything that was written. The handwriting was kind of scribbled. There were a few cigarette butts left behind, so I figured this must have been a guy. The scene was pretty fresh. The pieces of paper were still white, and the handwriting hadn't been damaged by rain or dew. He must have left not too long ago. While looking around, I found another bag under the tree next to me. Inside was a thick red liquid, mixed with some chunks that I couldn't tell if they were meat or something else. A smell of decay hit me, and I thought it was coming from the stuff in the bag, until I saw a duck head with a long neck decomposing right next to it. An electronic device was in pretty bad shape. I figured it had been smashed with a lot of force. At first, I thought it was a smartwatch, but when I tried it on, it was way too big for my wrist. For a moment, I thought of a device used to track the behavior of prisoners after they're released. It's worn on the ankle. I tried it on and it fit my ankle perfectly. I found another notebook a few steps away, picked it up, and saw that it was in perfect condition. It was getting dark really fast, and the rustling sound of dry leaves startled me. I quickly left before I ran into any other dangerous animals. I found the perfect spot to spend the night, a small wooden house. After checking, I didn't find any belongings or items left behind by the previous person. I took out my stuff and started getting dinner ready with confidence. After I finished eating, I pulled out the notebook I'd picked up earlier to read. A notebook looked pretty ordinary on the outside and didn't have the owner's name on it. As I flipped through the first pages, there were scribbles and a few random sentences about life. Mike Jones, prisoner at San Quentin State Prison, released on May 30th. Reading that, I immediately felt a shiver. I knew this Mike. He was reported by the media and police in California to have died over a month ago, right after getting a 15-year prison sentence. He was a pervert with 13 charges, including violence, theft, and attempted murder, but he didn't succeed. Mike talked about what happened during his sentence, how he was beaten by other inmates, and how many times he tried to end his life, but failed. My nerves were on edge when I realized the handwriting in this notebook was similar to the handwriting on the pieces of paper and plastic bottles from earlier that day. So, I had accidentally wandered into the territory of a dangerous person. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and I was startled. My heart was pounding like crazy. I didn't answer or open the door. I just sat quietly, listening and waiting to see what would happen. After about 10 minutes, I slowly opened the door and looked outside, but no one was there. On the ground was a plastic bottle with a note that said, "Get out of here now. I saw you." I had just received a threat and a warning. It wasn't clear if that person was Mike Jones or not, but who knows what they might do next. On top of that, I don't have any weapons to defend myself. I quickly packed up my stuff and left the forest that night. I hoped I wouldn't run into any more trouble. Luckily, I got out of the forest safely and found a motel to stay in. Right after that, I called the police to report everything I'd found and sent them the video I had recorded. The next morning, I drove back home. That afternoon, I saw on the news that Mike Jones had been found and arrested by the police. He was sent back to prison because of his defiant behavior. Since then, I haven't had the guts to explore the forest again. It's a place with a lot of cool things to experience, but there are also potential dangers that can be hard to handle. The story is based on a true event about a YouTuber's scary camping trip. He really loves nature and has a passion for exploring new places. He recorded his trips and experiences and shared them on YouTube for people who have the same passion. After that scary evening, the young man gained a new perspective and learned to be more careful and alert on future trips. I'm Brad, 31 years old. I used to think that 28 was the short age I would have to live in this world. That day, I went to the amusement park without any special occasion. I simply loved the thrill rides there. While wandering around there all day, I met a guy who shared my interests and was also there alone, Sean. It was around 6 p.m. when the last ride we chose was the roller coaster, the level 1 thrill ride. Since it was late, only a few people who truly craved the terrifying feeling like us remained to ride it. It was just a little over 10 people. After getting settled, Sean and I sat in the front row. It was amazing, yet insane. The feeling of plummeting from a height of about 120 feet, facing the ground directly instead of just the back of the person in front. "Wow, I'm pretty excited," I turned to joke with Sean. Not long after, the train began to move. We went through winding, spiraling tracks and sudden accelerations, accompanied by screams of both fear and excitement. We sighed in relief and chuckled with each other after the train returned to its starting position. But it didn't stop. It went around for a second time. We quickly enjoyed that heart-pounding sensation that made our heart rates soar exponentially once again. Strange events began to occur as the train went around for a third time. During the first segments, at a relatively slow speed, I could clearly see the confusion on the faces of the two ride operators. And a few seconds later, everything in my sight began to blur again at the speed of the train. The screams at this moment were no longer filled with excitement and enjoyment. People were confused, asking each other what was happening. Just like that, the train had been running for 20 minutes. With every turn and tilt, a nauseating mixture was expelled from someone's stomach. Some unlucky people would get splattered with it, including me. I tightly shut my eyes, clenching my hands around the safety belt, trying not to scream to conserve my strength. The crowd gathered below, and the police had been present for a while, but the situation still could not be resolved. And then, the first person to break under the strain, with his small frame, slipped out of the safety equipment and daringly jumped down, only to... His body was split in two by the weight and speed of the train. A cacophony of screams from both the people on the roller coaster and those below turned the scene into a tragedy. A large force of police was mobilized, and nets were set up to assist the victims. Technicians were also gathered to handle the control system of the train as quickly as possible. The relatives of the victims trapped on the train were also present. They shouted loudly, calling the names of their loved ones, sending them words of encouragement that they were trying to hold back amidst their tears. Continuously for more than 4 hours, a few more people were unable to survive. Some due to heart attacks, some from vertigo, and others daringly jumped down. The net set up below had not been able to save anyone. Uncomfortable, in pain and desperate, but the worst feeling we had to endure all at once lasted for several hours. I understand why some people chose such a negative way to escape. The situation worsened further as the tracks of the train showed signs of aging, with cries for help beginning to emerge as endurance reached its limit. A large, long iron bar at the curve had come loose, forming a scythe of death. Only Sean and I, my newly made friend, remained. I turned to him, with limited visibility and unable to see his face. All we could do was grip each other's hands to share a bit of fragile motivation. Suddenly, a loud tearing sound, accompanied by a grotesque sight, smell, and color. Sean, only his left arm remained, still tightly gripping the safety belt. My body was covered in a lot of indeterminate red mixture from Sean. My consciousness was about to slip into a state of deep sleep. I remember the train stopped after running continuously for 5 hours. There were many sounds and eyes surrounding me as I was pushed into the ambulance. After that deadly ride, I was the only one who survived. Brain injury, broken ribs, and severe psychological trauma were what I had to endure for nearly 2 years afterwards. After the accident, I moved to a peaceful countryside to escape the noise and hustle of the city. Fortunately, I still had enough health to do light work and learn to cherish life more than ever.
I'm Cecilia, 32, happily married with a husband and a 6-year-old. On my way to grab my kid from school, he was all pumped up seeing the streetlights for the biggest holiday of the year. But for me, the scariest time of year is coming up. Christmas, 25 years ago. I was the same age my kid is now. That day was Christmas, my 6th birthday, and the day I lost it all. I also had a happy family with my folks and my brother. We lived in Miles City, Runnels County, Texas. That Christmas night, I couldn't sleep at all. My mother told me that I was a special child, that Santa would give me Christmas presents and birthday presents. My mom told me I was a special kid, that Santa would hook me up with Christmas and birthday presents. Out of nowhere, I heard a noise from the roof. I straight up jumped up and ran to my parents' room. "Dad, Mom, Santa's here. I hear footsteps on the roof." Mom put the book down, looked at me, gave me a little smile, and then took me to my room. "Honey, Santa will bring you presents if you go to bed on time. Deal?" I nodded at Mom, jumped into bed, threw the blanket over me, and shut my eyes. Then I remembered something and quickly told my mom, "Mom, don't forget to leave chocolate milk and cookies out for Santa when he drops off the gifts." Mom laughed, patted my head, and nodded. When Mom left, I hesitated for a sec, then jumped out of bed, tiptoed to the stairs, and peeked down. Yep, Mom had left cookies and milk on the dining table. As Mom walked past the front door, she reached out to lock it and yelled at Dad for being careless. Before Mom went upstairs, I had enough time to dash into my room and hop back in bed. I laid in bed for a bit, but I couldn't sleep. The noise just kept getting louder and louder. I totally forgot what Mom said, so I left my room again, went to the stairs, and peeked down at the living room. The dark figure just vanished, heading to the dining room. It was someone every kid in the world knows and waits for: Santa Claus. I ran to my brother's room, trying to wake him up. Jeffrey, Santa's in the kitchen. Wake up!" My brother was still out cold, so not wanting to miss Santa, I rushed downstairs. As soon as I got close to the living room, Santa was standing by the tree, getting ready to pull a gift out of his bag. But nope, it was a tool for chopping wood. I knew, because my dad had shown it to me once. The thing Santa was holding was different. It was red and long. He slung it over his shoulder, gave a little smile, and slowly turned around. My excitement quickly turned into nerves. I just froze, because this Santa was way different from what I imagined. His laugh freaked me out, so I quickly ducked behind the stairs before he walked by. Back then, being an innocent 6-year-old, I just stood there watching, not knowing I'd just come face to face with the devil. He headed up to my brother's room. After a few seconds, I heard sounds I couldn't even explain back then. I just stood there, stunned. But later, I realized it was the sound of something brutal. It was the sticky sound, Santa's creepy laugh, and the sound of liquid dripping and splashing everywhere. Santa walked out, and I could see his face. It was so weird. No long white beard, just a pale face, black lips and eyes, and a big creepy smile, and a long, pointy nose with a black dot at the tip. No gift bag, just him humming with a creepy smile, walking around still holding that wood-cutting tool, dripping red stuff everywhere. He went into his parents' room, and then I heard my dad let out a weak scream for a sec. Then, that sticky sound came back, and this time, it was way clearer. Then my mom screamed, and I'd never heard her scream that loud before. "Jeffrey!" My mom yelled my brother's name, but didn't call mine. "Jeffrey!" She busted open my brother's door, then screamed like she was in pain and totally freaked out. Mom was followed by Santa, and his arms, his face, everything was just covered in red. Mom was about to head to my room, but then switched directions and ran downstairs. At that moment, I was thinking, didn't Mom remember me? Didn't she care where I was? As soon as Mom got close to me, Santa swung the axe at her back. I saw the whole thing, every single hit. Mom's screams and last words were just her calling out my brother's name. My heart was racing, and I barely had time to turn around and run for the kitchen. I didn't think twice, just yanked open the cupboard, crawled in, and tried to stay as quiet as possible, shaking while I heard footsteps getting closer. I peeked through the crack in the cupboard door and saw Santa happily munching on cookies and sipping milk. He was sucking on his bright red fingers, looking all refreshed and grinning like he was loving it. After he finished the cookies and milk, he washed the plate and cup, then left with a creepy laugh. The next day, my grandma found me, and there were a bunch of police at the house. Grandma hugged me so tight, I could feel her holding back tears. Thank God for protecting my Cecilia. On the wall next to the Christmas tree, I spelled out each letter in bright red. SANTACLOWN. It's been 25 years, and they still haven't figured out who that Santa was. I get why my mom went into the room and why she only called my brother's name. In that moment, my mom wanted Santa to think there was only one kid in the house, my brother. I was scared of the color red, scared of that guy in the red suit and black boots, scared of the noises at night, the footsteps, the sound of running water. I've never been able to forget or shake off the terror of that night.
So, I'm Tyler, and it's been like 6 months since everything happened. I fought like hell to make it back here. Even though I was physically okay, I was totally freaking out inside, and my heart felt ice cold. My girlfriend died right there during our picnic, and I saw her get murdered right next to me. My girl's name was Violet, and I was planning to pop the question. I'd kept it all on the down low, and everything was going perfect. One gorgeous weekend in November, Violet invited me out to Lake Berryessa to go camping. Tyler, I'm so pumped. I want to see the gate to hell, Violet said. For anyone who doesn't know, the gate to hell is what locals call this massive whirlpool that shows up when the lake water gets high. This whirlpool was made by this cool overflow system that helps control all the extra water in the lake. We rolled up to the campsite with food that Violet made herself. There's no one here but us, Tyler, Violet said, checking everything out with a big smile. I looked around too, and she was totally right. I joked, I booked the whole place just for us, and we both cracked up. We ate and chatted, and I was about to finally do what I'd been thinking about for months. I dug into my pocket to grab the ring box, and my heart was racing so fast I could barely breathe. Tyler, Violet called out, and I jumped, dropping the ring box. She reached out and grabbed my arm, looking confused as she stared behind me with wide eyes. Violet, what's up? I asked, turning around, and there was this tall guy wearing a black hoodie and sunglasses, so you couldn't see his face at all. He was holding some metal thing in his hand. Hey, I shouted, but he just ignored me. Need any help? I tried to sound friendly, but as he got closer, we saw that he was holding a knife. Violet was freaking out and holding my hand tight. Call the police, Violet, I whispered while standing in front of her. But Violet looked totally frozen and didn't seem to hear me at all. We were kinda at his mercy, so it was probably best to just go along with what he said for now. I didn't want anything bad to happen. I figured this was just gonna be a regular robbery, after handing over all the car keys, my wallet, and phone. But nope. "Tie up your boyfriend," that crazy man told Violet. At that moment, Violet was scared. Her face was pale, and she was shaking like crazy. Following the robber's orders, Violet tied my hands with my belt. Then, that bastard tied Violet up too. We were made to lie face down on the car hood, facing each other, and Violet just started crying. "Chill out. Everything's gonna be fine. I'm always gonna be right here with you, okay?" I tried to comfort her, but I was freaking out too. Violet bit her lip hard, trying to hold back her fear, and nodded. Those were the last words I got to say to Violet. She suddenly let out a scream of fear and pain as the first stab hit her hard in the back. The second, third, and fourth stabs came. Violet's screams got weaker, and all I could see were her eyes, filled with pain and despair, looking right at me. My heart stopped. I was breathing heavy, and my throat got all choked up. I couldn't say a word. A wave of horror hit me as I saw that awful scene, and my eyes filled with despair. I felt completely helpless. Pain and anger shot through my heart, and there was no way I could save the person I loved. I gripped the engagement ring box tight in my hand, like I was squeezing my own heart. That bastard stabbed Violet 10 times. He laughed and pointed at me. Just like Violet, he gave me 8 stabs and then casually walked away. I mustered up a little strength and tried to yell for help. A moment later, a dad and his kid who were fishing by the lake heard me and helped call the cops. My memory went blank right then. I woke up in the hospital to the gut-wrenching news that Violet had died from deep wounds and blood loss. The police asked me to give a detailed description of the killer. White guy, about 5 feet tall and around 170 pounds. Besides the black hoodie and sunglasses, he was dressed in all dark clothes. Oh, and there was this symbol on his shirt, a circle with a cross over it. That was all I could remember about the guy. According to the police, he was a serial killer, known as the Zodiac. Violet and I were the victims of his third case, but somehow I'd made it through. After that awful shock, my mind went totally blank. Every night I was haunted by Violet's last image. Her desperate eyes and bloody body kept showing up in my dreams, and even when I was awake, I felt like a total zombie. My heart was ice cold, and any shot at finding joy again felt completely hopeless. I couldn't shake the guilt of not being able to protect the girl I loved, and it felt like a mental wound that would never heal. The helplessness, bottled up anger, and pain of loss were crushing me, making me feel scared and empty, not knowing how to deal with reality after everything fell apart. The story is based on a true tale about the Zodiac Killer's third case. On September 27, 1969, 22-year-old Cecilia Shepard and 20-year-old Brian Hartnell were on a romantic camping trip at Lake Berryessa in Napa County, California. They went through the most painful and terrifying moments of their lives when they ran into Zodiac, the most mysterious killer ever. Even though the police found some more clues the killer left behind at the scene, they still couldn't figure out who he really was, even now.
I'm Raymond, 26, and I just moved from Tennessee to Texas for work. I've been dealing with depression and have been getting treatment at the hospital in my hometown for the past 2 years. The illness has made me miss out on a lot of opportunities and beautiful things in life. I moved to a completely new place with the hope of starting over. I started working at a securities company and rented a small house on the outskirts of the city. But the pressure from work and finances made me start regretting my decision. Every problem feels like a tighter knot in a rubber band. making me feel incredibly suffocated. There were many times I thought about going back home, but I kept pushing myself a little harder. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, I found a note on the refrigerator that said, "Remember to bring lunch." I just stared at the handwriting on the note, feeling blank. Since I was running late for work, I didn't think much of it. I just opened the cupboard and grabbed the burrito I made the night before. The next day at work, I found another note on my kitchen table, written in the same handwriting. "Remember to bring an umbrella, it's going to rain today." Since I live alone, I wondered who could have written these notes. Anyway, it wasn't too serious, so I decided to follow the note's advice once more. That day, the unexpected cloudy rain was really annoying and caught everyone off guard. As for me, I was pretty relaxed with the umbrella I brought. In the following days, the notes started appearing regularly around the house. I once decided not to follow the note's advice, and that day turned out to be really terrible. "Catch up with Lucy today. Present your presentation with confidence, and remember to back up your point of view." I just got used to the notes showing up around the house without thinking much about it. It felt like it was predicting the future and reminding me of everything I needed to do. I felt like I was back to my true self, no longer self-conscious or afraid. I even had a girlfriend named Janet. It might sound a bit silly, but it was the notes that helped me win her over. It showed me how to make a good impression and how to confess my feelings. She was very beautiful, with long brown hair that always smelled like fresh roses. She was gentle and thoughtful. My life was incredibly happy during that time. The notes became indispensable to me, like how you need to eat every day to stay alive. That night was the first time she invited me to her place after 3 months of dating. 6:30, I'm making a super special creamy pasta for you. Needless to say, I was thrilled. I went home right after work, took a shower, and put on a really nice outfit. I didn't forget to pick up a bottle of wine and a bouquet of roses, her favorite flowers. At 6 p.m., just as I was about to leave the house, a note suddenly appeared on the door. "Finish, Janet." I was startled when I read that strange message. After thinking about it for a while, I guessed that finish might mean ending the relationship with Janet. But we were really happy together. Why would we end it? I decided to ignore the note and quickly headed to her place to make sure I arrived on time. But before I could even get in the car, another note appeared on the car door. "Kill Janet or don't go to her house." "What the heck?" I said, feeling a bit annoyed. I tore up the note, crumpled it, and tossed it in the trash. I got into the car planning to place the bottle of wine and the bouquet of flowers on the passenger seat. Another note appeared. "You have to kill Janet." I fell into deep thought, pondering everything. Up until now, the notes had always guided me accurately. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a message. "Honey, everything's ready. Are you on your way?" I texted Janet back and quickly drove off. I pulled up in front of her house right at 6:30 p.m., but I didn't go in right away. I just sat in the car, my mind racing with chaotic thoughts. Holding the bouquet of flowers and the bottle of wine, I decided to trust in love this time. She greeted me with a bright smile, which instantly made me feel more at ease. She was busy in the kitchen, preparing the food, while I opened the bottle of wine at the dining table. Feeling a little bulge in my pocket, I reached in and pulled out another note. "End it all now. Whatever you do, don't eat the pasta." I was sweating from the awkward situation. She brought 2 beautifully decorated plates of noodles to the table and set them down. "What's wrong?" Are you not feeling well? Janet asked, making me feel startled and embarrassed. What's with the note? She asked, continuing her curiosity. No, just some notes from work, I replied. I quickly crumpled the paper and shoved it into my pocket. Sitting at the dining table, she rested her chin on her hand and looked at me expectantly, eager for me to try the noodles. I was sweating heavily under my shirt, and my throat felt so tight I couldn't swallow anything. I took a sip of wine and made an excuse to use the bathroom. My head felt like it was about to explode, so I splashed cold water on my face to try to wake myself up. It seemed like there was another note in my shirt pocket. She will hurt you with a small knife. I felt weak and unsure of what to do. I loved Janet a lot, but I couldn't ignore these messages. Noticing I'd been gone for a while, Janet called out for me. I quickly walked out, startled to see her holding a small knife with a bright smile, while her other hand held a half-peeled apple. My mind was racing. I rushed to grab the knife from Janet's hand, and her panicked screams were loud, and the creamy pasta was covered in a layer of dark red and fishy liquid. Janet screamed and ran out of the house, while I sat on the floor in a daze, with my hands covered in red. A moment later, the police arrived and restrained me, despite my numerous explanations. I pulled out countless notes from my shirt and pants pockets, but they were completely blank. She was rushed to the emergency room and fortunately survived. The police took me back to Tennessee, and I ended up getting treated in a mental hospital. There were no notes predicting the future. I'd been living in a hallucination caused by my depression the whole time. One time I told my wife she didn't have much time left. The reason I've got such wild jokes is partly because my wife, she's got a fun, upbeat, and kind of pervy personality. My mom passed away from a serious illness, and at the funeral, my wife pulled off this crazy stunt using ventriloquism from a course she took.
Help me, let me out.
She copied my mom's voice and said it just as they were about to lower the coffin. My dad and I were stunned, and the funeral guests, some freaked out and ran, others straight up fainted from fear. Meanwhile, my wife was laughing and cracking jokes at her mother-in-law's funeral. Last time I got home from work, I hadn't even gotten out of the car before I was yanked into the house. My wife pushed me down on the couch, and with tears in her eyes, she said the lottery ticket we bought at the convenience store yesterday hit the jackpot. I have no idea why I totally believed my wife back then without even questioning it. I agreed to buy her all the brand name stuff she wanted with the cash I'd been hiding for ages. Even crazier, I called my boss and told him I was quitting and gonna buy the company. After I said that, my wife cracked up and nearly spit out all the orange juice she had in her mouth. I was shocked to see that I'd totally been played. I had to totally grovel to my boss, saying I drank way too much that day, which is why I was acting all wild. Honestly, that trick hurt like hell, and I've always thought about getting back at her somehow. A few days later, my wife's health took a nosedive out of nowhere. I could see how worn out she was, dealing with worse and worse stomach pain. She was not the cheerful and lively wife I knew anymore, and I really missed her. I took my wife to the doctor, and they said we'd get the results in 3 to 5 days. Those were some really tough days for my wife and me. I took some time off and spent all my days with my wife, doing all the stuff we'd been planning for ages. Some nights I cried holding her. We were planning to have a baby by the end of the year, but my wife totally saw those worries too. Chris, I'll be fine, or else I won't leave you hanging.
I hugged my wife and cried like a kid without even realizing it. But that was just the start of the door to the first level of hell. 3 days after my wife went to the hospital, I got a call on my phone. It was the doctor.
Hello, Mr. Wilson. I'm calling to update you on your wife's condition. Can you hand the phone to her? I've tried reaching her a few times but couldn't get through.
I begged the doctor to talk to me. I couldn't wait any longer and didn't want my wife to hear the results, good or bad, before I did.
You and your wife just keep enjoying your happy family life.
So my wife was good, and I was just in tears. At that moment, my wife walked in, saw how I was acting, and got pretty worried and nervous. That was the doctor, right? Why didn't you call me? Am I fine? In a split second, it hit me to get back at them by bringing up my wife's life and death. You don't have much time left. We don't have much time. I'm sorry. Going all out, I cried and hugged my wife, making my face look as painful as I could. But my wife didn't cry. She was totally emotionless. She pushed me away and went to the kitchen, and I kind of zoned out for a sec before following her. When I got there, she had a bottle of wine and 2 glasses ready on the dining table. Let's grab a drink and chat for a bit. I thought to myself that I had to stick it out in this role of my life until the end, and then I woke up all tied up, standing against the wall. What are you doing? I freaked out when I saw my wife sitting with her back to me. She turned around right away, still looking emotionless, but she had a rifle in her hand. She stood at the end of the room, aimed right at me, and loaded the gun. I swear I almost wet my pants, like for real.
Maddie, honey, I'm not cool with this kind of joke.
Honey, there's no way I'm leaving before you. The thought of you living on and maybe marrying someone else is driving me nuts.
Maddie, please, I was just messing around. It was all a joke. I'm sorry. The doc said you're fine.
I yelled when I saw my wife's finger on the trigger. God, I've known and been married to her for almost 10 years, and I never knew she had such dark thoughts. She put the gun down, thought for a few seconds, then tucked it back in that wooden box. The box I've always thought was just for decoration. I was panting, my heart racing like crazy, and sweat was pouring down. Then my phone rang, and this time my wife picked it up.
I'm really sorry, Mr. Wilson. I made some mistakes about your wife's results earlier.